Thanks, folks. I think we're the first co-presenters of the day, so for the sake of clarity, I'm Spitz, and that's Amanda. Welcome to E-Patients Are Talking and Pharma is Listening. But is Pharma really listening? Kind of, sort of, maybe. No one in this room doubts that if they're not, they should. And if they've started, they should do it more. So the purpose of this presentation is really to show how we engender that engagement and that dialogue, and we'll do so by demonstrating an extremely powerful, intuitive, and effective analytics tool known as Radian6. So let's do a quick survey of the room. How many of you folks are aware that simple and powerful tools for basically tapping into the e-patient ecosystem, as we'll call it, exist and are readily available? Show of hands. Quite a few. How many of you folks are familiar, or at least heard of Radian6 as a vehicle for doing that? A few more. And how many of you have actually used Radian6 in terms of reaching out and gathering insights into that patient ecosystem? So we do have a few. So we have something for everybody today. Yep. Oops. When we talk about the patient ecosystem, it might seem a little bit odd, counterintuitive, and perhaps even cliched. But the analogy is striking and powerful. All the qualifiers that we placed on an ecosystem, critical mass, level of interactivity, organisms communicating with each other, evolving and changing, ultimately apply to the e-patient digital sphere of influence. As folks like e-patient Dave has demonstrated in terms of the methodology of empowerment, personal strength and growth, as Charity shared a little bit earlier with regard to that very personal struggle of overcoming illness. The ecosystem is really about survival. Patients out there aren't shopping, they're looking for effective solutions, they're reaching out to technology and to others to find those solutions, to bring them back to a sense of normalcy, to ultimately bring them back to, if not a cure, then an improvement of quality of life. So essentially, when we break this apart, when we deconstruct it, an astonishing number of individuals are online right now. You've got 250 million folks in the United States alone who are utilizing the web and everything associated with. Of this, an astonishing 80% of them are seeking healthcare information actively using these tools and resources, which, interestingly enough, matches up exactly with the Nielsen number for levels of social media engagement as well. Of these individuals, they are using all the channels that are available to them, engendered by the social media revolution, enthusiastically leaping on them, using them to communicate with each other, to share their own experiences. And as Jonathan Richmond and Seth Godin mentioned a little bit earlier too, the idea of personal privacy is evolving and changing as well. Folks are hiding their identities, but more and more individuals are declaring themselves sick, are self-identifying with their illness and self-disclosing their diagnosis for the one and only purpose of reaching out. And 1 in 5 of these individuals are actually actively reaching out to others, creating peer-to-peer relationships using these technologies. It's truly a vibrant, amazing ecosystem. In stark contrast, let's take a look at pharma. As we mentioned, some are, some aren't. Clearly, they should be doing it more. Ironically enough, they're like an explorer, or anthropologist, or better yet, an environmentalist, cast off on this island, separated from the rainforests they're trying to save. So ultimately, how can pharma bring benefit through the tools, through the resources, through the molecules that they've created to provide patient benefit if they don't even really understand the essence of the patients that they're trying to treat? When a recent survey was conducted of European pharmaceutical professionals, some astonishing statistics came up. Only 7% of funds are going into digital on a high level. Less than 20% see digital growing. And a minuscule 2% see their companies as innovative pioneers in the fields of communication. Perhaps even more shockingly, more than half of these companies see themselves never engaging in social media. So they never want to reach out, they never want to contact. But on the good news, the tools and resources are available to do that. 13% are already kind of engaging, and a third are at least willing to try. The statistics in the United States may be a little bit better. but clearly not promising as of yet. So what's that gap? What's this really all about? On the one hand, you have this vibrant network of individuals reaching out powerfully to each other, empowering themselves with their health care for the first time in history. And on the other, you have individuals and organizations creating the solutions for them, and that there's an impasse of the unknown, in a sense, an undiscovered country. Steve Jobs is someone we know, so we take a quick sojourn into understanding who he is and what he's doing. We're happy about his ability to basically open up the web, open up communications through gadgetry, technology, the titan of Silicon Valley. We're a little bit upset at him maybe for keeping systems a little bit closed, for being a little bit tyrannical in his management. He's a person, he's a human, he's a gifted individual who's got great promise to the world. But he's also a pancreatic cancer patient. He's full 360. He's 360 in terms of his accomplishments, but also in terms of his debilitating illness. An illness that has brought him off the board, brought him away from Apple. As we know, he can no longer do the great things that he's done. But why is that relevant for us? It's relevant for us because we know him as an individual. We've tracked his history. We know who he is, what he's done. We also, fairly recently, have self-identified him as a patient, as a survivor. But what about the 44,000 other pancreatic cancer patients who are out there? Do we know them? Does Pharma know them? Do we know them as pharma marketers and healthcare professionals? The good news is that we've got tools, as I mentioned, resources, everything from the Verilog conversation monitoring that Jeff has shared, to reaching out into the web and tapping into individuals communicating with each other through these tools. And Amanda now is going to take us through a quick demo of how we can actually reach into the hearts and minds of these pancreatic cancer patients to gain insights, gain understanding in ways that are simple, effective, and intuitive.
Thank you. So Radiant6 aggregates data from across the web. So we're talking about everything Facebook, Twitter, blogs, forums, pulls that data together and serves you conversations. And the conversations are anything and everything from TVs to mortgages. But for today's purposes, we're going to dive into pancreatic cancer and look at the patients and what their conversations, what conversations are happening here. So the first thing we're going to do is log into Radiant6. So welcome to our space here. And it's basically just like a web-based tool, just like you would log into any website. This is your blank dashboard, and today we're going to fill it with some exciting data about pancreatic cancer patients and their conversations. First thing we're going to do is configure our topic profile, which is where we're going to create the pancreatic cancer topic profile. Now, in order to do that, there are 4 steps. The first one is creating the topic profile. From there, we're going to look at widgets, and there are a number of them, and widgets are basically visual tools that display your data for different reasons, and we're going to go into that in a minute. We're going to choose our widget, and then we're going to dive into the data, and I'm going to give it back to Michael for that. All right, so we're going to create our topic profile around pancreatic cancer. The first thing we do is we name the profile, and then we're going to kind of go into some details here. Do we have specific media types we would like, or do we want all of them? Are there certain languages we'd prefer? Are there certain keywords? Well, keywords are very important because that is what the topic profile is made of. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to think of any keyword that is associated with pancreatic cancer. And you want to think about how the patients would be speaking. There would be misspellings. There could be multiple ways of saying pancreatic cancer. There could be negative keywords that you don't want associated with your profile. So you want to think about all of those when you're setting yours up. And you can easily go back and edit it if you want to add something in later. This is just another visual of the keyword builder. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is create our widget gallery. There are a lot of widgets, a lot of fun widgets you can choose from. We can dive into everything from sentiment to which media they're using. And if you have more questions about this, we have a booth today with Brad who can give you more info over there. But for today's purposes, we're going to look at the basic widgets. And those include River of News, Conversation Cloud, and a topic analysis. A topic analysis allows us to dive in by media type. So we really want to get into the hearts and minds of these pancreatic cancer patients. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Where are they doing it? Where are they sharing? And that's really what this widget will enable us to do. So let's say we pick this widget along with a few others. Now our dashboard's all filled up with some great data. And for today's purposes, we're going to dive into the Conversation Cloud. And the Conversation Cloud pulls out the keywords that are the most talked about. So all the mentions are served up right here. And you can see, because pancreatic cancer is one of the big keywords, that one's first and foremost. But as Michael's going to show you, we're going to dive in, and you're going to see that some are really popping that you might not have expected. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, but before I do, I just want to say steps 5 through 8 enable us to really dive in deeper now. So now we're going to show you some of those conversations, real conversations that are happening. So after we set up the profile, you know, it's all yours to take it from there.
Yeah, as Amanda was demonstrating, we've got the web and all the activity. Then we filtered it down into pancreatic cancer conversations and essences. And then we're drilling down further, ultimately landing in websites that are most robust and reflective of the pancreatic cancer patient and community, ultimately landing in actual conversations and content shared by pancreatic cancer patients, caregivers, even healthcare professionals and influencers. So we've dived into the dashboard that Amanda mentioned right now. This is a conversation cloud where the size and position of the keywords are reflective of their importance, and some amazing insights become apparent pretty quickly. Conventional notions of clinical conversation have been mitigated basically by highly emotional needs. As we've been describing all day long, it's a human affair. It's about personal stories. It's about personal engagement. And that's evinced by basically the keywords that are here, where you've got family and love, which transcend more clinical conversations such as palliative care, treatment, manageability. And when we zoom into quality of life as a keyword search that we want to dive into, the program even enables you to search by media type. We're going to choose forums. And in the river of news, we've got real-time conversations that are actually happening, filtered through the system, that we could then explore, investigate. And here it becomes a mixture of art and science, where basically the user of the program, coupled with the technology, land in places that generate true insights about that e-patient ecosystem. Ultimately, we land and identify in a certain few platforms that seem to really resonate and represent representative cross-sections of the community. And in the last steps of this, we take those individual conversations, we dissect them, and we provide some insights. So quickly, we've narrowed down the search based on all this filtering to certain platforms that are out there, Cancer Forum's Daily Strength. We've got some of the engagement metrics here. And what we're finding, again, is we're extracting the actual communications of these patients. Hubby wants a quality of life, and he will deal with the pain. It's worked very well for her, and she still has a decent quality of life, referring to a particular chemotherapeutic agent. The conflict here is becoming rapidly apparent between to treat or not to treat. You've got a chronic, debilitating illness with survivability, which is about a year. It's tragic, it's life-threatening, but it's also an impasse between treating and not treating is coming up through some of the terms. She would rather have a quality of life than quantity. She has come to terms with when it's her time and it's her time. And in converse, having watched someone I love die from pancreatic cancer, I can honestly say that I would have the surgery if it was an option, teeter-tottering between quality of life versus quantity. If we quickly go back to Steve and what it represents, using the analytics tools that we've just described, an astonishing 21% of the conversations that are going on right now are related in some way to Steve, to his predicament, to patients self-identifying both with his accomplishments and his plight, but most significantly with his courage, with his willingness to go on, and hoping, if they can, that his plight will basically share and engender encouragement for the community overall. And basically, in terms of our takeaways, pharma marketers, advocacy groups, all of us have tools at our disposal to really tap into the e-patients we've been talking about all day. Radian 6 is one of these tools and technologies that are particularly useful, effective, and intuitive. And what we can get from these insights is basically that knowledge, that understanding of who the e-patient is, what they're thinking, what they're struggling with. And from a pharmaceutical point of view, it's providing those value-added resources, those tools, some of that evolution Jonathan was referring to earlier, a shift from simply making molecules to understanding patients, their needs, and providing a holistic bevy of resources to enhance quality of life and improve outcomes. Thanks.